Hi folks, it's Andy and welcome to the Kendo Rant. Bit of a different setup today. Again, I've had a big change around here at KendoStar. Things are a little bit up in the air, so this is a sort of temporary setup. Anyway, let's get straight into it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on growing a dojo. Of all the Kendo related things I struggle with, the one that has vexed me time and time again is attracting and retaining new members. It's a huge struggle for us. Your thoughts would be appreciated. I'm afraid that at the heart of it, the answer is, like all Kendo answers are, related to shortcomings about ourselves that need to be addressed. Okay, so yeah, it's really tough. It is really tough to grow a dojo, and especially to get people through the door. The hardest thing is, I'd say what's harder than getting them through the door in the first place is getting them to stay, getting them to come back. Because frankly, Kendo's just not for everyone. The thing is, yeah, I mean, let's deal with those as two separate problems. First off, about getting people in the first place. Just do everything you can to make sure that your message is out there. Make sure your club has got a Facebook page. It's one of the things that I'd say is probably the biggest mistake for most Kendo clubs out there. They have like Facebook group or like a sort of maybe even a member page, like a profile that's set up in the dojo's name, but they don't actually have a Facebook page. And you've got to get a Facebook page because it'll help with the search engine results and stuff, search results when somebody types into Google or whatever Kendo in their area. It'll help with that for a start. And yeah, I mean, it's just a good way to do that. And then it also makes spreading the message much easier, especially if you can get a little bit of budget together, so that maybe you can even drop a little bit on advertising. I mean, obviously that depends on the funds of the club, but you can actually have really great results for like Facebook advertising, for example, for something like a Kendo club. Other than that, you know, posters out in the community, getting the word around, just talking to people about it is another thing. So yeah, that's another thing that I'd say is potentially something you can do. About keeping people, that is really the hardest thing, because you've got to strike a balance between making it kind of enjoyable and obviously making people feel like they want to come back, but also without kind of straying too far away from it not being Kendo anymore and just being kind of like an hour and a half or 2 hours of sort of fun swinging a stick around. I mean, in my club, we have a kind of curriculum for people. We don't take people in dribs and drabs. We only take them on a set date as a beginner's course. So we take a group at a time. So when you get an inquiry, sort of ad hoc, they get added to the list. They have to kind of register to join our beginners group that starts on a specific date. We tend to find that works better. People tend to we tend to get more people stay if they start as a group rather than if they just start as and when, and that's easier for people to sort of drop off. And we bring them along and sort of take them through the basics. And it's a learning curve. It's a learning curve for me as well, to be honest. It's something that I'm still kind of quite new to, especially here in the UK, for example, which is where I'm teaching Kendo. It does have a very high drop-off rate because people just don't know what Kendo is before they get into it, and it's often very, very different to what they expect it to be. I've actually toyed with the idea of making this a subject of a video specifically for people that haven't started Kendo yet. Maybe something about things you need to know before starting Kendo so that they can get a proper idea of what Kendo really is and whether it's for them or not before they come. A lot of people, they don't understand but they're not aware of the basic stuff, of course. Stuff like you have to practice barefoot. You have to shout at each other, things like that. I think it's more tiring than many people may expect as well. There's those sort of barriers to get over. But I think the key to it is getting the people through the door. If you get enough of them through the door, then with a bit of luck, some of them will stick around. I think that's the thing to do. And other than that, just try and make sure everyone's nice and friendly, very open, and welcoming to the new people, and as kind of involved together as possible. Next question. Hi Andy, what are the main differences between the Shinobu and the Kaisei? I'm going to present Shodan this year and I'd like to replace my old Bogu. Wait a second. Okay, I'm back. Here we are with the the Shinobu and the Kaisei Bog set. Here they are here. So these are mine, of course. These are my own ones, so they're a little bit battered and bruised. But yeah, just ignore that. Let's start with the Shinobu, okay? To be fair, they're quite similar in lots of ways because they're really great sort of all-purpose, all-round sets. They've got a good balance of protection, durability, appearance, stuff like that, comfort. And they both do look really great. And for presenting your grading exam, either set is going to be absolutely fine. It really comes down to sort of budget, really. But let's go through them quickly. The Shinobu, it features the hybrid stitching. So it's got these little bumps of cushions all over it. So it's got great protective features, but it has more of a look of a kind of standard Boga set than something like the Vanguard Prime, which has got really wide stitching. But it's also, because it's got the tighter stitching in between the sort of bumps there, it's really easy to shape into a nice shape like that. So it does look really awesome. So again, great for gradings. It's all reinforced with orizashi fabric, okay, which is the kind of cloth that's used to make the kendogi. This makes it very quick to dry, very easy to care for, and yeah, obviously it helps on the cost. You've also, all the leather fittings on the Shinobu are synthetic deer skin. It's not real deer skin, which is one of the things that really was the main thing really that separates it from the Kaisei. Now, if we look at the Kaisei, again, this is a different type of stitching. This is a cross-pitch type of stitching, which means it's stitched in 2 directions at 6mm intervals. So it's a kind of grid pattern across the futon. I'm not sure if the camera's picking that up, but if you go on the product page, you'll see. So again, much like the Shinobu, you get that great kind of moldability of the futon. So again, it looks really, really great. Now, what you're paying more for with the Kaisei is the materials that it's made from, especially as it's completely reinforced with genuine Aizome deer skin, which is a really expensive material. It's a really premium grade material, but it just does look so nice. This was the set I specifically designed for my own grading exams. So yeah, if you want the ultimate in terms of appearance, and if you've got the budget for it, then the Kaisei is definitely an absolute great choice as well. In terms of weight, they're at a similar sort of weight. You're going to get a bit more durability out of this one, mainly because of the materials that it's using. But that isn't to say that the Shinobu here is not durable, because it most certainly is. So if you, I mean, to sum up really, the best thing you can do is, if you can afford to go for the Kaisei, then it's definitely worth the extra investment just out of the kind of premium materials. It's going to be really, really beautiful for decades really of use. Frankly, because of this deer skin, it's going to fade really nicely. It's just going to look really, really nice even after a long time. But obviously it is that little bit more expensive. So if you want to sort of save a little bit, then you would absolutely be perfectly happy with the Shinobu 2. It's a great choice at the price level. So yeah, I think that sort of covers everything. Right, next one. Question about the different methods of tying the men. The Kansai method, hashaku or 8-shaku, only use... Oh, sorry, it says, is the Kansai method, Is the Kansai method, 8-shaku, only used in the Kansai/Kinki region, or do people in Japan use it as much as the Kanto method? And is it general practice that kendoka from outside Japan tend to tie their men only in Kanto style? And do you know where these two methods are originating from, and whether there are pros and cons for each? Okay, so what we're talking about now is how we attach the Himo to the men. Okay, now there's basically 2 ways to do it. This is the most common type, and this is what you're referring to here as the Kanto style, okay, where you attach the chichikawa to the bottom of the mengane here, and it wraps around the back through the top of the tatagane, and then is wrapped back around and tied around behind the head. The other style, which you're referring to as the Kansai style, is where you actually only use one long Chichikawa and you need longer men Himo. The Chichikawa goes basically, it kind of wraps around the Tategane here, and then the Himo come around the back of the men the same, but they come underneath the Mengani here and overlap this part here where the Ago joins the Membuchi, like this. Up around again, then they go, I think they go through here and then round the back and then they tie up. First let me address the terminology. I've only ever heard them referred to as, and this is only in my experience, all right? So I'm not saying this is hard and fast, but in my experience of living in Japan, and I did live in Kansai and I lived in Kyushu, I've never heard them referred to as the Kanto style and the Kansai style. I've never heard that in Japan. I've only heard that from outside of Japan. That isn't to say that in Japan they don't say that. Maybe they do say that in Kanto, for example. Maybe they say that. I never lived up there. I never really practiced Kendo much up there, so potentially that's how it is. But where I lived, they didn't call it the Kansai style. They just called it uekara, so from above, or shitakara, from below, in terms of where they attach the chichikawa or the himo. And frankly, the attaching from above, what you would call the Kansai style, is definitely much more common in Kansai than I've seen anywhere else, though I have seen it kind of in other places too, but certainly nowhere near as common as attaching from below like this, which is by far the majority of people, certainly from where, like in Kyushu, which is where I was living, nearly everybody attached in this way, which is why I think the name Kanto style for this is somewhat erroneous, because it's really common everywhere else. It'd be more accurate to call the top one Kansai style and the bottom one as the regular style or the normal style or the style where everywhere else does. In terms of where it originates, I believe that the Kansai style originates from, again, I think this was kind of similar to the original way of doing it before it was properly standardized. I think most people probably attached it at the bottom here like this. And I believe that the Kansai style came about because there used to be the rule that if you could grapple your opponent to the floor and take off the men, then you automatically won your match. So in order to prevent that, people developed another way of tying the men, hence the Kansai style, where it's wrapped around twice. It's much, much harder to get someone's men off. If someone's tied like this, actually, if you give it a sharp tug from below like this, it's quite easy to get it off. In fact, sometimes you see it even in the shiai where the shinai catches it funny and kind of flicks it off. There's a few videos of that going about. But with the Kansai style, you don't really see that so often. In terms of pros and cons, the Kansai style, if you want to call it that, the one where you attach from the top, it does tend to secure it to your head more securely. Of course, that's the reason for it. Personally, I tried it for a bit. I didn't like it myself. I found it harder to get the men tied in the correct place. I felt it encouraged the men to be tied in a lower position, which I don't like so much. And also the other thing about it is it takes much longer to tie, because you kind of have to really tie it from scratch. You can't, you can't leave it threaded up like you can with this way. You have to re-thread it every single time. So it does take much longer to put the men on. So it's certainly not very common with students or high school students, stuff like that, because they have to get the men on really, really quick. But yeah, I mean, you see senseis using it and stuff. You occasionally see it from outside of Japan as well. Some people, like I say, prefer it that way, especially to get used to it. Some people prefer the look of it. So yeah, that's kind of how that works. I've dropped my papers on the floor. I'm going to have to pick them up. Back again. Right. Where was I? Hey Andy, what's your opinion of Bokken made from very light wood, such as balsa? I've seen a ZNKR expert use it, and I heard it helps with tenuichi, building the smaller stabilizer muscles. He made a point of showing the Bokken shouldn't move a millimeter at the end of the swing, and said that things along the lines of you should swing it as if it were a heavy Bokken. What are your thoughts? Would you sell it? I'd buy one probably. Optional commentary. What was impressive about the demo is that nobody could tell it was a balsa Bokken until we tried it. Nobody in the dojo could swing it properly. Okay, yeah, they're reasonably common in Japan because you really have to swing them with your left hand. If you've got any tension in your right hand whatsoever, they kind of go all over the place. I've seen a few variations on that theme as well, where people have used just one slat from a shinai to do suburi, or I've seen people use really short shinai as well as a kind of replacement for that. I've also seen the like the suburi bokken, you know, like the fat ones that you use for suburi, made of the same really light wood. It's not actually balsa wood. Usually it's called kiri, which is, I think in English it's Polonia. Which is it's really similar to balsa wood though, and yeah, it's really really light and really really soft, and yeah, I have seen suburito that are made from them. There's the suburi style bokken that are really thick, and like I've heard of stories of high school kids using them because, like you say, you can't tell from the look of them that they're really light, as a way of kind of skiving on their suburi. So everyone's doing maybe 100 or 500 suburi, and they're using this really light bokken to kind of cheat their way through it. I've heard of that. But in answer to the actual thing itself, yeah, I mean, it's quite a good training tool. I have considered selling it on KendoStar. I'd very much like to, but I'll tell you the problem with them. The problem is importing them from Japan, and it's not that it's expensive or something like that. I mean, they are quite expensive, but the biggest issue is importing them from Japan and then sending them around the world because they're so fragile. The slightest sort of touch will leave a mark on them because it is such a soft wood. So that the problem is, if I import a load of them from Japan, at least half of them will become products that I can't actually use. Because they'll get damaged in transit, and then another half of what I send out could potentially get damaged in transit. So I've got a real big problem there with the logistics of selling a product like that. But I mean, I'll certainly look into it more. I mean, potentially there's something we can do to get around it. I'll think about that. Hi Andy, I've got a question in regards to your points on Kiri-kaeshi. There are certain members of my club who receive Kiri-kaeshi in an unusual way. Rather than simply receiving the men cuts with their shinai, they quite forcibly deflect each cut, and then will sometimes drop their shinai to ensure my hasuji towards their men is correct. However, I usually find this extremely difficult as the impact of their deflection drastically changes the path of my arms and the cut are taking. Is there something I should be doing here that I'm missing? Is this a particular way of receiving Kiri-kaeshi in order to put pressure on the kohai? I'm the kohai in this situation, so I'm not in any place to making correction to others. Thanks heaps, and as always, love the ranks. Thank you very much. Okay, so yeah, right. So as motodachi for Kiri-kaeshi, you have to judge the level of your partner, of the attacker, and if they are a reasonably good level, then it is okay to kind of apply a little bit of tenuichi to the receiving, so it kind of strikes the shinai out of the way. So what's happening here is your senpai is doing this. They're blocking this way with the shinai, and then randomly moving the shinai out of the way to make sure that you're actually aiming for the men. So yeah, I mean, if you're then missing the men, then they're highlighting to you that yeah, you need to concentrate more on aiming for the men. Now, yeah, of course, if they're doing strong blocks, it makes it harder for you to focus on aiming for that men, because you become conscious that their shinai is in the way. You have to try and forget that and throw away the thought that your strike will be blocked and still aim to strike the actual datotsubu of their men. Ignore their shinai, and if they move it out of the way and you still miss, then be grateful that your senpai has highlighted this kind of error in your cutting. Don't take it from the point of view that like how can I say, you've you know, you failed to make the cut or something like that. I mean, yeah, that's fine, but that happens to everybody. Yeah, that's fine. That's a learning tool. Yeah. So of course, I'm sure that if I did Kiri-kaeshi with your senpai, he did the same thing. I'm sure that I would probably miss the men cut maybe once or twice as well. I'd try not to. I'd hope that I wouldn't, but potentially I would, because it happens to everybody. But what you've got to do is not think, oh, he's trying to trick me, or I want you to take it in the most positive way you can. So don't look at it as like, oh, you've been kind of tripped up by your senpai, or that you've been forced to fail because of your senpai. Just like I say, just clear your mind of the shinai. Forget that the shinai is there, and attack as if it's not there, and aim for the datotsubu. Yeah. If he's striking it out of the way and you're finding it hard when he moves it out of the way to actually strike, and you end up missing, then you've had it highlighted to you really that indeed you weren't managing to completely ignore the shinai. Yeah. So be grateful for that teaching from your senpai, if that makes sense. Probably not the answer you really wanted, but I think that's the best way to approach that situation. Can I attack my opponent's sword from a 45-degree off-center to smash down his shinai? Generally preparing for door. Is this not allowed? I'm not quite sure I understand, but if you're talking about kind of coming around this way from 45 degrees and hitting down the shinai, or maybe hitting down the shinai 45 degrees from this way, neither of them are not allowed. I just don't think you'll find them very effective if you actually did it in practice. You know, if you move off this way and try to hit someone's shinai, you're certainly unlikely to open them up for door, but even so, they're likely to see you've got something like that planned. The best thing to do is try to ignore that their shinai is presenting a threat in that way, and try to use your shinai to overcome that threat by taking the center, yeah, and putting pressure down the center, rather than coming to one side and striking from sort of an angled position. I recently saw a diagram from a well-known sensei about Sagan. Can you explain the importance of shifting the kensen and how it's related to semi? Well, Sagan it's always a grey area because it's not an official kamae in All Japan Kendo Federation Kendo. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, or that some sensei don't call Chudan Sagan, or that some people don't just use those terms interchangeably. I'm guessing from the context of your sentence that you're talking about the idea of aiming the kensen at the opponent's eye as opposed to the throat. Generally, the All Japan Kendo Federation doesn't teach that so much, but I think their book says specifically, I think it says like between the throat and the eye level. No, that's coming off the top of my head though, could be wrong. This is a very, very broad question, to be honest. I'd need a little bit more context to give you an accurate answer. And I don't know what the diagram is that you mean, but the importance of shifting the kensen and how it's related to semi. I mean, it's extremely closely related to semi, but it depends on how and in which way you shift it. The way in which you apply pressure to your opponent, the way in which you affect the pressure that the opponent is being put under is somewhat relational to the if I can get my words out. It's been a long day. It's somewhat relational to the position or the movement of the kensen. Perhaps as I step forward and I start to apply semi, perhaps my kensen will start to drift over to my right, to my opponent's left, which will maybe make them feel like they have a chance to strike my men. Maybe the same thing would happen if I put it downwards. Maybe if I pushed it to the right, this way they'd feel like they wanted to attack my kote. Maybe they'd feel like I was going to attack men, and they get themselves in the position ready to do a counter strike. So of course it's very, very relational. The problem is I can't give you a specific answer without something a little bit more kind of substantial in the question itself, because like I say, explain the importance of shifting the Kensen and how it's related to semi. I mean, that's super broad. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, that's a bit of an idea. Okay, last one. Andy, regarding the Kendogi, I used to be very conservative about the way I used to wash my gi, but not anymore. Now I wash it more frequently, disregarding discoloration. Kendogi and Boga are industries that need our support to survive. If we do not purchase to replace our old deteriorated equipment, how will they survive? I like you. Of course, I am in the Kendogi industry, so yeah, it does benefit me when you purchase new Kendo equipment from KendoStar. It doesn't benefit me so much if you buy it from anyone else, but still, yeah, look, obviously, yeah, the Kendogi industry does need your support. Yeah, it does, in order to continue existing. But at the same time, that doesn't mean you have to disregard the way you look after your equipment. If you buy some equipment from me, I'd really like it if you took the best care of it as you possibly can, and that it can last you for as long as possible, and you can get the most possible enjoyment out of using it. So I would encourage you to take care over washing your Kendogi and make sure it doesn't fade too quickly. You don't have to keep buying them in that way. The best way to support Kendogi, the Kendogi industry, specifically KendoStar, obviously keep buying the stuff from us, but getting more people involved in Kendo. The more people involved in Kendo, then the more opportunity we have, of course, to sustain ourselves through providing equipment. But yeah, I mean, I don't want you to be like, oh, well, you guys need our support, so I won't look after the equipment as much. I'm not saying that that's what you're inferring from your question, because I'm sure you look after your gear very well. But yeah, I mean, like your Kendogi and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I want you to look after it properly and take care of it, because it's taking care of you, especially your Boga. Yeah, your Boga's there to protect you, so do make sure that you're looking after it so that it can do its job. Okay. That's the end of the questions. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Obviously, like I say, a bit of a different setup. I kind of like it though, just nothing behind me. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. I already said that, but still. Make sure you do all the like, share, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. Don't forget to join the Kendo Show Early Access group. Some of the questions were from that. There's a link in the description down below. It's free to join. It's a great place to post your questions, because you don't just get my answers in these videos, but you get a whole load of answers from Kendoka from all over the world. So yeah, make sure you're in that group if you're not already. Don't forget to do your shopping at KendoStar. I'm pretty sure I already mentioned that in the last question. But yeah, make sure you get to KendoStar.com for your Kendo equipment needs. That is the website, of course, that I run. So yeah, it doesn't only help to make these videos, but it's fantastic equipment. I reckon it's the best stuff, of course, I would say that. It's all stuff that I've designed or curated specifically for the international market. We had a New Year's sale that was supposed to end on the 31st of January, but it's still up there. Pro tip. So if you want to go and take advantage of that to take it down before I take it down, you might just grab yourself a bargain. That sale should have ended a few days ago. I just literally haven't had time to sit down and work out and get the team actioned on that, so you might have another day or two on that if you want to grab a bargain. That's at KendoStar.com. So that's enough of that. Don't forget to leave me a comment, a question. Let me know what you'd like me to rant about next time. Crikey, I can't get my words out today. It has been a long day. It's already 8 o'clock at night. I'm going home now. Thanks a lot for watching. See you all next time.